Sam Seder here. This is the live broadcast of the Majority Report. And as you probably have heard, there's a bit of a YouTube apocalypse that has been going on. Many news and politics channels have lost their advertising because of an algorithm that Google has implemented as a function of ads showing up on hate-filled channels. Well, we got caught up in that, and it doesn't look like it's going to be resolved. So we need your help. You've probably heard from other channels that they're asking people to donate to a Patreon site. We are asking the same so that we can operate this YouTube feed without a cost to us. I mean, we don't look at YouTube as a huge revenue maker for us, but we need your help so that we're not losing money on it. So head over to our Patreon site. Here is the URL. We need your help. Just a couple of bucks, $2-3 a month would really help us out. Thanks so much and enjoy the show. Hi, folks.
Every time I see you in the world, you always step to my girl. Way back, I used to front like Anglo at Mechanicsburg, Anchorage, and Dar es Salaam. Well, home in New York with champagne and disco, tapes from LA/San Francisco, but actually Oakland and Alameda. Your girl was in Berkeley with a communist reader. Mine was in tune with a boombox and Walkman. I was a horrible girl that was back then. Gloves are off, the wisdom teeth are out.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder. It's time to look in the mirror, America. Do you like what you see?
I keep referring to Obama as the magic Negro.
Do you like what you see now?
Well, suck on this.
It's just a mirror, America.
Shared sacrifice by everybody.
What could it do to you except reflect your image?
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
The Majority Report.
Far more credible to me than PBS and Frontline.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is only effing Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the four-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. Oh, God. On the show today, Comey's revenge. He kept memos. And the end game is now probably revealed. Calls for impeachment as Republicans begin to realize they are cornered. Meanwhile, the LA school board goes full charter, but in Philly, a small revolution. As Trump heads abroad, reports that his Russian loose lips sunk an Israeli spy embedded in ISIS. Meanwhile, Chelsea Manning released today, 7 years too late. No one wants to work for Trump, reportedly. And welcome to the 25th Amendment mulligan. New poll shows that health care is what is putting the House in play. And another subpoena issued, this time for Paul Manafort. While right-wing media and others, we'll see, push the DNC staffer murder fiction. Your generation's Vince Foster, folks. And lastly, Lawrence O'Donnell apparently out at MSNBC because he was too hard on Trump. Very rude. All that and more on today's program. What's that little buzzing noise? Whose microphone is that? What's going on? There you go. What was that? Michael's? Oh, good job, Michael. Well, you better work it out.
Sam. Much appreciated.
Well, his microphone's always buzzing sometimes. Ladies and gentlemen,
It's always buzzing. Sometimes.
we will, always.
Interesting sentence construction.
Sometimes it's buzzing. We will be taking, we may take some phone calls earlier. So if you want to give us a call at 646-257-3920. Today, we have no guest. I said, wow, it was almost 6 whole days ago. I think I said this, but following the Comey firing, that we would see a cavalcade of leaks, not unlike we did in the week or two before the recusal of Jeff Sessions. And the agenda, of course, is to create, as I speculated at the time, would be to create some form of independent investigation outside of the congressional apparatus, one with authority that could not be quashed, like it potentially could have been if it was just the FBI. We may have already superseded that, although, don't get ahead of yourselves. I think there's a lot of people who think that impeachment is inevitable, by June. No, I don't think so. However, what James Comey has done is to begin the process. So apparently, according to associates of James Comey, right, these are leaks, not leaks of any classified information, but this is a concerted campaign here. According to these sources, James Comey wrote contemporaneous memos of every time he interacted with the president. He probably wrote contemporaneous memos of a lot of different interactions. This is apparently typical of FBI agents. Frankly, a lot of people in government, and people do this all the time, where they recount meetings that they have with people.
So we can look forward to seeing the Obama loyalty memo. Right,
indeed. But in Comey's case, this was standard practice of FBI agents when they had any type of meetings or interviews and whatnot. These things are regularly submissible in court and stand up as pieces of evidence based upon the methodology that the FBI uses. So when Comey writes this memo, he writes it within hours of the interaction, and then he sends it to senior FBI officials and other associates. We don't know who those other associates would be. To establish this was a memo he wrote at that time, where presumably, unless he's Lex Luthor, doesn't have the ability to project into the future as to what's going on in some type of grand scheme. And according to sources, maybe it's not true, but according to sources, one of these memos recounts a time that they met, I believe in February. President Trump asked Comey to shut down the federal investigation into Michael Flynn. This is right after Michael Flynn was fired. I hope you can let this go, is the quote the president told Mr. Comey, according to the memo. In fact, it goes on to the exchanges. Mr. Comey shared the existence of the memo with FBI officials, close associates. The New York Times has not viewed a copy of the memo, which is unclassified, but one of Mr. Comey's associates read part of it to a Times reporter. Quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go," Mr. Trump told Mr. Comey. "He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go." Mr. Trump told Mr. Comey that Flynn had done nothing wrong, according to the memo. Mr. Comey did not say anything to Mr. Trump about curtailing the investigation, replying only, "I agree. He is a good guy." Okay, and I,
Vindicated.
yeah, vindicated.
See,
Okay,
exactly.
bingo. That's
James
what I
said
said.
it himself.
Here's here's what is, I think, not terribly complicated about this. This is basically the string that Comey has pulled out there and said, "I'm going to put this out in such a way that you can't help but pull on it. And what you're going to find next is going to be even worse." And it appears to have worked at least phase one of the plan. Because Jason Chaffetz, the soon-to-be retired Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee, has demanded that the FBI turn over all, quote, memoranda, notes, summaries, and recordings of discussions between Mr. Trump and Mr. Comey. And so what you have here is the ability of Comey, who may or may not have an actual case, a criminal case against Flynn, although I think it's likely they do against Flynn, against Trump, against Jared, against Ivanka, against whomever.
Whole crime family.
I mean, who knows what he has? But as of the day that he was fired, he did not have a fully formed case. However, this stuff is now going to be released, at the very least, to members of this committee. Comey he didn't want to release it. He's being forced to release all this information, some of which is innuendo, speculation, whatnot, but it's all going to be put out there. And remember, impeachment and the 25th Amendment, for that matter, these are not criminal procedures. These are political procedures. And so it doesn't matter if he didn't have a fully formed case. In fact, if he didn't have a fully formed case, this is the best case scenario, that someone else forces him to put forward all of the three-quarter finished work, half-finished work that will certainly look, I think, bad for Trump. And I bet it's worse than this, because these guys are professional creators of narratives. And, they're not Hollywood scriptwriters, so I'm not saying that as a compliment per se.
You don't get to be FBI director unless you know your way around a memorandum.
Well, I mean, look, we've seen what they do to people who are completely innocent.
Oh, really?
Right?
They
I
know
mean,
how
the
to
465.
handle some innocent Muslim guy.
Exactly.
I think they can take care of this.
Exactly. Heck, all we need are three guys who are looking for some military-style boots and uniforms, and we can create a virtual coup against the United States. And so these guys know what they're doing. This is not a good situation for the Trump administration. And in fact, and here is, and I mean, you watch television, it doesn't matter what news network you watch, if it's anything but Fox, and you see all these former Justice Department officials and CIA officials and communications officials, and I would just guess, I have nothing to base this on, but some sort of disturbingly high portion of a percentage of those people are probably involved in some type of Tuesday brunch meeting where it's like, this is what we're going to do this week. So all of this stuff, you have to just be conscious that everyone who's presenting this information, and maybe some instances it's not, but the vast majority of them, there's an agenda behind it. I'm not saying that about anybody specific. This is Matthew Miller. He's the former spokesman for Eric Holder. And I'm not saying it about him per se. I'm just, who knows? But here he is on Morning Joe this morning and suggesting exactly what I've said, that the leak that we've just got from the Camp Comey is, undoubtedly not the full Monty, if you will.
Where you said, effectively, stay tuned. This was last week. Director James Comey keeps a paper trail of just about everything. Do you suspect that the memo that was leaked to the New York Times or conveyed in some way and described to the New York Times yesterday is the first of many that we'll hear about from Comey?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Times, in fact, reported that he had written a number of memos. And I think if you look at Jim Comey's past, this is completely consistent with what he's done in prior administrations he served in. He wrote memos like this in the Bush administration. And if you look at the memo that came out last night, and you think about the inappropriate conduct it reveals, remember that he also had this dinner with the president in late January, where the president asked him to pledge a loyalty oath, apparently, where he asked him about the status of the investigation. I have to think there's a memo about that conversation, and I have to think there's a memo about other conversations. And look, if I were in Jim Comey's shoes, you probably don't leak the worst memo first, right? The memo we saw last night may be the least damaging to the president. We may be seeing even more explosive ones to come.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah. There's, the loyalty conversation. God knows what else.
I mean, he's just sitting there on some level, and it's so. I just have to say, it's especially when you mention the entrapment of Muslims things, it's so hard to talk positively of James Comey. But you could just imagine him sitting there, and one part of him is terrified, this guy's actually the president, and the other part of him is just memo, report.
Right.
This is incredible. This guy is such a moron.
He's probably written these memos. He mailed them to himself. He sent them to his mother. He gave them to everybody in the FBI. They probably were part of the Christmas package that they gave out in muffin baskets. I mean, there's probably such a paper trail of this thing. It's going to be pretty crazy. Now, along these lines, simultaneously, this is, I guess, in the wake of Donald Trump releasing sensitive, classified, top secret information to the Russians, it appears, and we'll get to this in a bit, that it exposed an Israeli spy embedded with ISIS. However, Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday that he would be willing to provide the U.S. Congress a record of President Trump's meeting with top Russian envoys. The provocative offer for the Kremlin to share evidence with the U.S. oversight committees about the Oval Office meeting came with a caveat that the request for the transcript would have to come from the Trump administration. Do you know, how Vladimir Putin, let's just assume that they in no way tried to influence the United States election, which, frankly, would be, it seems to me, gross incompetence on his part. But let's just assume, for some reason, Russia decided we're going to take this cycle off. We'll just keep doing it in the other ones, and the U.S. decided we're also not going to interfere for a truce. Even if all of this is just completely fiction, Putin has to be loving this. Literally just rolling on the floor. This is got to be Vladimir Putin's version of Matt sitting at home listening to Nixon tapes. Putin's got to be sitting there with bottles of vodka every night and just sort of laughing and laughing. And here is Andrea Mitchell, Because look, it's possible Lavrov and Kislyak left and they made their own memos of their meeting with Donald Trump. It's also possible that the photographers, the Russian photographers that Trump let in, as opposed to the U.S. press, that they just hung around and recorded the whole thing with either a recording device on them in the form of a camera or something like that, or maybe they just put a bug in the White House. Now, I imagine they sweep that place after, but who knows? Who knows with what's going on in this White House? So Andrea Mitchell asked the obvious question to Rex Tillerson, and Rex Tillerson, I think he's just like, God damn my wife for making me take this job.
Mr. Secretary, Vladimir Putin is offering Congress a transcript of that Lavrov Oval Office meeting. Do you think the Russians were bugging the Oval Office?
Oh, there's no way to know that.
What do you think of his offer?
I wouldn't know about that.
Well, what's the matter with my wife? I'm the CEO of goddamn Exxon. I don't believe in any type of civic obligation.
Meanwhile, back to the Comey revelation, the White House put out this denial last night. While the president has repeatedly expressed his view that General Flynn is a decent man, who served and protected our country, the president has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone else to end any investigation, including any investigation involving General Flynn. The president has the utmost respect for our law enforcement agencies and all investigations. This is not a truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation between the president and Mr. Comey. I guess we'll find out, at least when we hear from Comey. Comey's going to end up testifying. In fact, he refused to testify in private to the committee hearings, and that is because he wants to testify in public. And, he's done this before. He did this back in, I think it was 2007. And the reason why you do it is because they want to hear from you. And you want to make sure that you get to set the public narrative. So he knows what he's doing. And I want to get to... let's just cover also what we now are seeing in terms of reports as to what Donald Trump revealed to Lavrov. I imagine it was inadvertent. I think the guy's just an idiot. But, I mean, the idea that McMaster doesn't even feel like he can tell... Well, I don't even think President Trump knew where this was coming from. That seems to me to be sort of pretty basic stuff when it comes to providing intelligence to a president. But so yesterday, McMaster's in his press conference, I guess this was yesterday, it feels like a million years ago, said, that the city that Trump revealed was the site of this revelation was no big deal. Everybody knew the city. Of course, McMaster's didn't say the city. And now, we see from places like CNN why. Here is Jake Tapper responding to that yesterday.
President Trump, in a meeting with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and the Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, revealed highly classified information about this specific ISIS laptop threat. The Post reported that the president, quote, described how the Islamic State was pursuing elements of a specific plot and how much harm such an attack could cause under varying circumstances. Most alarmingly, officials said, Trump revealed the city in the Islamic State's territory where the U.S. intelligence partner detected the threat, unquote. It's the same city. It's the same city that CNN was cautioned not to report. But here's the president's national security advisor, General H.R. McMaster, when asked earlier today about the president sharing the name of the city with the Russians.
If you were to say, hey, from where do you think a threat might come from territory that ISIS controls? You would probably be able to name a few cities, I would think. And so it was nothing that you would not know from open source reporting in terms of a source of concern.
Again, this is the same city that intelligence officials say if we told it to you right now, it would get people killed. But somehow we are simultaneously supposed to believe that President Trump sharing this information, the city and more, with a U.S. adversary, Russia, is, quote, wholly appropriate, as McMaster said repeatedly today. That's a term he also seemed to define in terms of if a president does it in the name of national security, it is by definition appropriate.
All right, and look, and here's the point, because there's been more reportings overnight. This is coming from ABC. The life of a spy placed by Israel inside ISIS is at risk tonight. This is from last night. According to current and former U.S. officials, after President Trump reportedly disclosed classified information in a meeting with Russian officials last week, the spy provided intelligence involving an active ISIS plot to bring down a passenger jet en route to the United States with a bomb hidden in a laptop that U.S. officials believe can get through airport screening machines undetected. The information was reliable enough that the U.S. is considering a ban on laptops from all flights from Europe to the United States. We've heard that, right? That was a story a week or two ago, at least, about the laptops. And so here is the problem. We all may be able to say, wait, what 4 or 5 cities in ISIS control would a plot like this be developed? Okay, maybe it's Ramadi in Iraq, or maybe it's Raqqa in Syria, and maybe it's, I don't know, Dabiq or whatever. I don't know if I can name 5 major cities, but there's 3. But if I was to say it's in Dabiq, the number of people who are probably working in the laptop explosive, find someone who is a British or French or Italian or German or Dutch national or, and send them back to their homeland to take this laptop on a flight to the United States. The number of people in that circle who are aware of that plot is probably, I don't know, no more than 20, probably closer to like 10 or 5. And the one out of that group who could be an Israeli spy is probably, a fraction of that. So one has to imagine that that information could very well end up in ISIS's hands. And we could end up seeing that guy killed. So it's perfectly legal to do that, but the implications of it ranging from that guy being killed through to like Israel saying like, I don't know that we should give any more information to the U.S., to every other agency saying we shouldn't give any other information to the U.S. seems to be pretty substantial. And then, Russia, who knows? Russia trades that information. Not to mention, supposedly this agent foiled this ongoing plot with the laptops. Which plan in the future will that agent not foil? And that also becomes, really scary because the one thing, I don't know when Donald Trump meets his end as president. I don't know if it's from the enormous weight gain that he seems to be pursuing, or if it's like a 25th Amendment type of situation or an impeachment. But I do know the one thing that could inhibit that push would be a terrorist attack in this country. You know, that concern, people should keep that in their forefront of their minds. I mean, just you saw how quickly the establishment rallied around the idea of attacking Syria, which posed no threat to us. So you can extrapolate what their response is going to be if there's a terrorist attack in this country, and just keep that in mind, because that becomes a real problem for us, I think, in my estimation. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 330 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
It's Richard calling from Ohio.
Richard, what's on your mind?
Well, listening to you talk about Comey et al., and I've noticed this thing on a couple of the other pieces of coverage, and this is not meant as a criticism, but rather as a suggestion. I think what you guys need is some kind of bureaucracy correspondent, because this thing with Comey's memo, and before that, the thing with Comey's firing and Rod Rosenstein, makes me think that most people don't understand the way bureaucracies really work. And it's, as a former bureaucrat in a corporation, for example, the Rod Rosenstein thing, when he came out and Trump said, "Oh, I only fired him because Rosenstein sent me this memo." Well, that completely ignores reality, which is basically, in a situation like that, Rosenstein doesn't write a memo by himself. Instead, Satan's elf Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump go into Rosenstein's office and say, "We want to get rid of Comey. How can we do it?" And Rod Rosenstein, like a good little corporate attorney, sits down and thinks about it and writes a memo that says, "Well, this is how you get rid of Comey." And he just, it's bland bureaucratic crap. And if you pay a lawyer to come up with a reason to do something, they're always going to do it. That's what they're there for. I speak as a former lawyer.
My assumption at the time was that all that Rosenstein was asked to do was give us your thoughts on the behavior of Comey regarding the announcement that he was reopening the investigation. I don't even think that he was necessarily conscious that the agenda was to fire Comey at that time. I think they just wanted an opinion from him. And
yeah, see,
it's conceivable.
Let me tell you.
It's conceivable.
Let me tell you, and the only reason I say this, Sam, is because my spouse used to work for kind of the Rod Rosenstein equivalent in the city of New York, which is like the corporate counsel department there. Mm-hmm. And it's the way bureaucracies like that work. I mean, the fire department goes to the city's lawyer and says, "We want to do X," and X could be, "We want to search every fireman for drugs," or we want to do X or Y or Z. You make it, tell me how I can do this. Now, sometimes they'll say, "Well, you can't do that. It's unconstitutional or illegal." But a lot of times, they're just going to say, "Oh, okay, well, let's see what oh yeah, here's a good way you can make that happen."
Well, I mean, I think that was pretty obvious from his letter, frankly. He didn't recommend that Comey be fired. He just simply said he behaved inappropriately and contrary to policy. That's more of an assessment than it is a recommendation. And I think Trump decided to use it. And Trump decided to use it as the basis of a recommendation. And then I think what happened is Rosenstein threatened to quit. And then Trump, basically, said, "Okay, well, I promise not to say it's you anymore."
Yeah. And likewise, this whole Comey memo thing. I mean, you probably have run across it at some point, but there's a phrase for it. It's called a CYA memo, which is basically you have a meeting, you're a little unhappy, you go back and you dictate a memo. And it's like the guy said, in fact, you quoted him. He does memos all the time, and they're always CYA memos.
Of course.
somebody says something that's snotty, and you go back and you write a memo and you stick it in a file, so that if something blows up, you keep you pull out the memo and say, "Oh, look, Donald, you told me in February that you wanted me to go easy on Michael Flynn."
Sure.
I mean,
I
it's
remember
like
writing
classic
multiple of
bureaucratic
those at
behavior.
Air America, frankly. When
Yeah, precisely.
when somebody I knew was messing with me, I would just sometimes what I would do, and that's probably why I didn't last very long there, was I would write back to them what they said to me in CC, like a half a dozen other people.
Yeah. Well, which is probably why you didn't last there. It would have been smarter to just stick it in a file and save it up.
Yeah, but
until
not
you really
as
got
fun.
something to hammer them.
Not as fun. Appreciate the call.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Take one more phone call. You're calling from a 724 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is John, Pittsburgh.
What's on your mind, John?
And I've just been thinking, I mean, with everything that's going on, where do you think that, where does Trump's approval rating have to fall to for Republicans to feel politically safe to abandon him, essentially? Or is there even a floor to that end, or is it just about cutting taxes at this point?
I mean, I think maybe like 26, 25 is when you start to see sort of like a wholesale abandonment, but it's also just a function of, how relentless, what the perception is of where this is going. I mean, I contend that, well, the Comey stuff may be much more disturbing, but I contend that, Paul Ryan right now and Mitch McConnell are thinking, we're sent here to cut taxes and to inhibit the ability of middle class and people living in poverty to getting health care. And so we are going to do that. And they're going to keep trying. I mean, it's also possible at one point they think hey, you know what? Let's just get Pence in here. But I'm going to do a couple stories on that right now, and I appreciate the phone call. Let's look at Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell's response to the latest revelations, because again, these guys, short of the distraction, they are. This is a huge opportunity for them, and when Donald Trump is on the scene, Paul Ryan's incompetence and idiocy really isn't pointed out to the extent that it should be. They think it's working. I've got polls that show that it isn't, I think, but there's not a lot of options for the Republicans here, for the Republican leadership. They have, the ship has sailed. And sometimes throwing good money after bad is your only option. Here is Paul Ryan saying, it's obvious some people want to hurt Trump. And, as far as the stuff that is really obviously not that, well.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, what about the political impact? Your members are on the ballot again in 2 years. Do you worry about some of the drip, or some of these controversies having an impact on Republicans?
I don't worry about things that are outside of my control. I worry about things that are within our control, and that is whether or not we do what we are elected to do, which is to solve people's problems.
Yeah. Here is Mitch McConnell asking if he has any problems or concerns about Trump's ability to handle classified info. Yeah, I mean, seriously?
Do you have concerns about the president's ability to properly handle classified information?
No.
And those three guys behind him, who's that, Thune, and who's the other guys behind there?
Barroso, and I don't know who the guy to the right is.
They're all just staring into the abyss. This is what I find somewhat interesting. You know, we've talked about the 25th Amendment on this show because it's been out there because Donald Trump is insane. And Baras Dathau had a column yesterday, maybe late last night, about the 25th Amendment solution to remove Trump. A lot of people have discounted this, but there's only one of two ways that this is going to end up going, right? And here is Dathau sort of providing the escape hatch for all Republicans. And he sort of complains that, like, the president is unfit. And 3 days ago, I wrote this in an affected, world-weary tone, blah, 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 blah. And he talks about the presidency being a unique office. And about how David Brooks wrote the other day that Trump is like a child. He's childlike. He's like a child. I would add a child who's maybe been in some type of accident or had untreated syphilis for 30 years. But Dathau says, a child cannot be president. I love my children. They cannot have nuclear codes. But a child also cannot really commit, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors in any usual meaning of the term. There will be more talk of impeachment now, more talk of a special prosecutor for the Russia business, well and good. But ultimately, I do not believe that our president sufficiently understands the nature of the office that he holds, the nature of the legal constraints that are supposed to bind him, perhaps even the nature of normal human interactions, to be guilty of obstruction of justice in the Nixonian or even in the Clintonian sense of the phrase. Now, let me just take this for a moment. The idea that Donald Trump is so insane that he can't tell when he's doing something illegal. Remember, when he had this meeting with Comey, that if the Comey memo bears out, the first thing he did before he had this conversation with Comey is to ask Jeff Sessions and Mike Pence to leave the room. Now, why do you think he did that? Prosecutors call that basically evidence of an awareness of guilt.
So they could get ice cream. What's the problem?
I'm trying to put the make on him, and I don't want any cock blocks around here.
Wait a second. I don't...
No, of course not. So this
more...
guy knows what he's doing. So Dathau's like trying to make it like he's so childlike. And I'm sorry, like, I don't know what age that Trump is supposed to be, like 3. But he's so childlike that he can't even tell that he's trying to avoid getting in trouble.
Affluenza.
I do not believe he's really capable of the behind-the-scenes conspiring that darker Russia theories envision. Well, look, fine, but you don't need to be John le Carre to commit high crimes and misdemeanors. You can be a dumb criminal.
Why don't we meet on the bridge? It's cold. Why don't we just meet in the office? Would that be a lot more efficient? It's my daughter hot.
It's hard to betray an oath of office whose obligations you evince no sign of really understanding or respecting. I am sorry. It's one thing to say he's crazy and the best way to remove him is the 25th Amendment. But it's another thing to sort of say, like, there's no culpability here. He goes on to say, it's an argument instead for using a constitutional mechanism more appropriate to this strange situation than impeachment, the 25th Amendment to the Constitution, which allows for the removal of the president if a majority of the cabinet informs the Congress that he's unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. And should the president contest his own removal, a 2/3 vote by Congress confirms the cabinet's judgment. Now, I think this was a function of, the Kennedy assassination. There was some concern that he could get shot and he could live without and not die, but have some type of brain damage. The thing that irks me about this is not just that Dothout is trying to argue the 25th Amendment is more legitimate because the president has no culpability. Okay? I mean, there's no court in the land that would find Donald Trump to be so crazy that he's not criminally liable. He has the ability to tell right from wrong. These are not terribly intricate things like telling a police officer, I'm your boss, don't investigate my friend. Okay? This is not intricate things. But what Dothout is setting up here is the way that everyone around Trump escapes culpability and liability. This lets everyone off the hook. If Donald Trump has no awareness that he's committing crimes, then no crime was committed. Then the Jareds, the Flynns, the Ivankas, the Mike Pences, who were, maybe they were so childlike, they had no idea what was going on. Maybe this is just like one big preschool, and nobody is responsible for any of this.
It's just a giant collage of inbred real estate.
And if nobody in the preschool is liable, then you certainly can't hold Paul Ryan liable.
Wait a second, all the hookers that I killed at the pee-pee parties, that was illegal?
And I'm not even talking criminally. This is a way of absolving every single person who enabled Trump from some form of guilt. They had no idea to realize that he was a baby. He was a baby. And they just thought that he was not a baby. And in fact, this is a way of Ross Dothout. This is a way of making sure that he has no culpability for supporting a party that grew this shit in a fucking laboratory for years. They all want now absolution. We had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Not when Mitt Romney went to take a knee to get his approval. And why did he want his approval? Because he was the king birther in chief. So much so that John Boehner wouldn't even admonish, wouldn't discourage his caucus members for bringing up birther bills. So that Ross Dothout doesn't have to take responsibility that John McCain brought Sarah Palin into the national spotlight and put her a heartbeat away from... Does anybody think that Donald Trump exists if Sarah Palin wasn't nominated vice president?
I can only speak to myself. It was an innocent baby-kissing excursion. He really does like his daughter, though.
If Sarah Palin is not nominated vice president, there is no Donald Trump. I'm sorry. Just, there isn't.
But also, I mean, can't you think of without Newt Gingrich and how they ran Congress, specifically without Roger Stone and Roy Cohn, who held around his whole career? But
I can come up with a scenario where, Newt Gingrich exists and history just passes him by. But when the head of your ticket promotes Sarah Palin to vice president, and the Ross Dothouts of the world say, well, maybe not my favorite pick, but...
Oh, no, he was favorable of her.
I mean...
Oh, yeah. You're being too generous. He was quite, in the beginning, like, she represents real America.
Of course. So they all... the 25th Amendment is it's like, we had no idea. Oh, my God, it turns out he's like some type of, like, uniquely non-Republican conservative movement project. Unbelievable. That's not unbelievable. Meanwhile, at least some people are getting... Anybody I'm convinced who is... I think every single person... There should be a show trial for every single person who agreed to be part of Donald Trump's administration. and anybody who supported his candidacy,
Cuban Revolution.
and then anybody who supported Mitt Romney and John McCain.
Incredible if he's like he's on Meet the Press and he's just like, well, Chuck, we've gotten away from our old, and then someone just this like commando team just comes, scoops him up. They're like wearing baklavas, like they're just this way, Senator.
Let's
Thank
just put
you.
a fence around Alabama. We'll let some folks out. There'll be plenty of opportunity for housing because half the country is going to be empty. And then we just put them all in Alabama with a big fence around it. If you really like Alabama and you weren't one of those people, we'll give you something in a neighboring state. And it'll be just like Red Dawn, except for those people will be in there, and we'll just go and we'll taunt them. We're not going to go see our dads and say, where did you leave the gun? And this is why you raised me this way, Dad, and all that.
See, this is why I prepared you. We elected an inbred real estate billionaire to preside over a constitutional crisis.
I knew
the communists would take over. That's why I raised you so hard.
I knew one day my bigotry would lead me to vote for a total man-child who can barely change his own diaper.
That's like the scene in I Have Lincoln on the Mind. But when there is that scene in Lincoln with the one legislator where he's talking to Lincoln, he's just like, I apologize, sir, but I am a bigot.
Am I being too Dennis Miller by just remembering that one scene where the father is on the other side of the fence and Patrick Swayze and Martin Sheen come up, or not Martin Sheen?
It's a little Dennis Miller. It's very college.
Well, he's just like
I would have only watched that movie when I did, which was in a dorm room and tremendously high.
I saw it in high school, probably
Did you
junior
go to the
high.
theater?
I you know what? I don't know if it's possible I saw it at the theater. I loved that
Awesome.
movie. I used to watch that all the time, though. All right. What is this?
Michael sent it. Apparently Trump is having a pity party up in New London, Connecticut today.
I imagine where he is, he could be in at the U.S. Coast Guard, but this was across. Ronald Reagan spoke at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy's graduation, which this very well could be. And there were multiple helicopters that flew over. And I was always upset because I didn't have a chance to vote against Reagan because I missed turning 18 by like 3 weeks. So my first vote was his reelect. But several of us mooned his helicopters as they flew over the Connecticut College campus.
Oh, look at the little Jewish boys mooning my helicopter.
And here is Donald Trump today. Really, I mean, folks, it's hard being a man-child president.
Look at the way I've been treated lately, especially by the media. No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly. You can't let them get you down. You can't let the critics and the naysayers get in the way of your dreams. I guess that's why I won. Thank you. I guess that's why we won. Adversity makes you stronger. Don't give in, don't back down, and never stop doing what you know is right. Nothing worth doing ever came easy. And the more righteous your fight, the more opposition that you will face.
What do you think Donald Trump would say is his righteous fight? Honestly, I'm just curious.
Russian partnerships.
What would Donald Trump say? What would his righteous fight be based upon all the promises he made about health care and the bill that they ended up marshaling through the House? What would he say? Just we're going to make Muslims feel very, very uncomfortable in this country. I'm really curious
At a
as to what,
certain
like, even
point-
from his perspective, what it would be.
A man should be able to step out with his daughter without feeling shame or judgment.
Full rollback on incest laws.
Full rollback. Ivanka, I love you. Tiffany, you're not for me. You don't get the red rose. But if I had wanted to make out with a 3.6 who was my daughter and the daughter of my worst wife, it would be you, Tiffany. But the point is that everyone should be equal under the law. Ivanka and Tiffany, hot daughter, gross daughter. It shouldn't matter. That's the America I believe in. That's why I'm in this fight. And that's why I'm taking, to some extent, possibly, and I say this with surety, the worst treatment not only any president has faced, but any human being in the history of the planet.
I think that he sees his righteous fight, which he's not succeeding in on any level during his presidency, as the America First thing, which involves making Muslims uncomfortable, getting people to leave, getting people to stop coming in, making it's pretty white supremacist type of.
I mean, that's
and I don't.
That's all I could see.
I wouldn't.
His NAFTA renegotiation stuff and the China's killing. He already basically threw that to the wind.
I don't think he. I don't know if he would necessarily see it as white supremacy. It just dovetails completely with it. He just sees it as we need to keep the best people and keep these horrible people out, and we're going to do that by, instituting these very racist and, kind of isolationist policies. And that's what he sees. And he sees as the decline of infrastructure. That was one thing that he really talked about a lot.
Well, yeah, but he hasn't. That's my point, is that outside of, yes, the Muslim ban and anti-immigrant sentiments, all of the America First agenda seems to have been completely thrown out the window.
Well, yeah, he's totally failing. He can't do anything. He's crazy.
The Jews don't like it, so.
But I'm still.
That's what he thinks.
But even though I have rejected all of my righteous plans, they're still trying to stop me from going back.
They're trying to stop
time
what's
and
in my head.
Redoing.
I'm playing
the
with the
plans.
space-time community.
All right, we got to go into the fun half.
We always said that, though. That was
Can I
something about
just
Trump
say
that we always
that-
called. We said on the racism and the xenophobia and all of that, he's going to fulfill his promises. And on the populism and the delivery, he's going to lie immediately.
He didn't even do that, but he just gave it up.
Well, attempt to fulfill his promises on the.
I officially feel like, even though I feel as though I and all of us have been being tortured daily with all of these things, today, maybe the Datha column, I think this whole thing has, for me, now jumped the shark, where I'm just like, it's just fucking insane. And like, it's nothing is, there's no conceivable way for this to go anywhere but just spiraling more and more out of control.
Was there a time, was it yesterday, you thought there was a chance that it wasn't going to do that?
No, but no. I have always thought that it was just like, what? Like the dumbest shit that I've ever heard. But it was mostly just like, now it's just like, seems like it's just going to escalate into like crazy, explosive something end. Whereas before I thought maybe it would just be a fizzle out end where.
Oh, no. I think we're all going off.
He had
in
a fake heart
supernova.
attack, and then he's something, and I don't know. Now it's just like.
Speaking of supernovas, folks, we're going to take a break, head into the fun half of the program, wherein you can call us at 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920 is the number. You can IM us. Remember, this show depends on your support. You can support this program by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, JustCoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY. Get 10% off. Buy the Majority Report blend. You'll enjoy it. What else? Oh, if you buy your stuff through Amazon or Jet.com, head over to MajorityReportKickback.com. Use our links. You will notice no difference. We get a kickback. Be right back after this. Sam Seder here. This is the live broadcast of the Majority Report. And as you probably have heard, there's a bit of a YouTube apocalypse that has been going on. Many news and politics channels have lost their advertising because of an algorithm that Google has implemented as a function of ads showing up on hate-filled channels. Well, we got caught up in that, and it doesn't look like it's going to be resolved. So we need your help. You've probably heard from other channels that they're asking people to donate to a Patreon site. We are asking the same so that we can operate this YouTube feed without a cost to us. I mean, we don't look at YouTube as a huge revenue maker for us, but we need your help so that we're not losing money on it. So head over to our Patreon site. Here is the URL. We need your help. Just a couple of bucks, $2-3 a month would really help us out. Thanks so much and enjoy the show. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report, ladies and gentlemen. Couple of quick news points I want to hit. In LA, they had the most expensive school board elections in the history of maybe everywhere at any time. And like millions of dollars were spent in this. Some from unions, but even more from billionaires who are pro-charter schools. And let me just say this about, it's occurred to me in the course of reading about this. To equate union money to billionaire money is a real category error, it seems to me. Even corporate money to union money is a category error. Because corporations are controlled by a very few people and represent the interests of a very few amount of people. Billionaires obviously represent themselves and their pro-charter groups represent a handful of people who either have some ideological desire to see the destruction of public schools or a profit motive, or both. Unions represent tens of thousands of people, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, but in these instances, tens of thousands of people. And so the money is more akin to an Act Blue page than it is a donation from a billionaire. So I should just say that, because you always read, like, unions, the way that that union money is equated with corporate money or billionaire money. So in LA school board races, I mean, the names don't mean anything to me, but they were explicitly charter school supporters. California has a lot of charter schools, and there is apparently a billionaire out there is determined to bring the number of charter schools up to 50%. They already say that the charter schools basically siphon $500 million out of the public school system in California. There are problems there, but this is not the way that you fix it, by creating these unaccountable, privatized little schools. It's a good way if you're in the make money off of educating our kids business. However, on closer to the East Coast, actually on the East Coast, we had better news in a local election. A veteran civil rights attorney, Lawrence Krasner, was elected as, well, I should say, won the Democratic nomination for district attorney in Philadelphia. That is, my understanding, more or less like winning the general election. He will be running in the general, and there will be a lot of people who are upset about it, because he's pledged never to seek capital punishment while working to end bail policies that lock up people for being poor. He insists on ending an asset forfeiture program, and also stopping stop and frisk searches that, no surprise, disproportionately target non-whites. So this is a big deal. Apparently people in Philadelphia are just like, this is a big deal.
Well, I mean, yeah, I know somebody who worked around this race, and just the notion that you go from having somebody who's, locking up activists to somebody who's actually one of the prime defenders of them in the city is revolutionary.
Yep.
I mean, that's not even like, I mean, some of these other races have been going from someone who's truly deplorable to somebody who is
pretty good,
somewhat sensitive to basic civil rights. This is much more significant.
Big deal. All right. Last night, Fox was having a tough time with these revelations of this Comey memo, sort of following in the wake of the revelations that President Trump was giving away very sensitive information, top classified information, to Russians as a way of proving that he was not impotent. And speaking of impotent, Jesse Waters on The Five has a really tough time understanding why this is important. And there's a couple of things I want you to note in this. One, Jesse Waters, not that bright, but pretty glib. Two, when Greg Gutfeld thinks that you are moronic, you know you have a problem. And three, Brett Baer, God bless him, I think was very generous to Jesse Waters. Here is Jesse Waters trying to downplay the relevance of this. Remember, folks, Donald Trump is below 40% approval rating in most polls. And but here is Jesse Waters.
That was a nice attempt. You've been practicing, I can tell. If I went out tomorrow to the street and I asked 10 people who James Comey was, I'd probably maybe get 3, maybe 4 who knew, depending on the neighborhood. This is a scandal.
All right, pause it for 1 second. I want you to just contemplate what Jesse Waters says. He believes that 30 to 40% of the people in this country know the name of the director of the FBI. Has there ever been a time since Herbert Hoover where you could actually say that? That should be a tip-off to Jesse Waters that that's a problem for his president. But remember, Jesse Waters doesn't really believe that there's that the fact that only 30 to 40% of people would recognize the name that he's talking about is not newsworthy. He made his entire career off of stupid crap like this.
Trump has been beating up on China. How does that make you feel?
Speak! Why don't you speak?
Donald Trump beating up on China at the debate. Is it the year of the dragon? Rabbit?
Wow. Hey, man, listen, this. I know how we can punch up this piece. Can you put in a sound effect that he's really smoking hard on that? All right, let's return to Jesse Waters, now a real newsman on the 5.
With no audio, with no sex. This is a scandal with no video, with no audio, with no sex, with no money, with no dead bodies. It's a boring scandal. No one knows the deputy AG's name. No one can pronounce the Russian defense minister's name.
I can.
There's memos and which memo and who sent what memo to who.
There is Greg Gutfeld basically saying, I've spent a long time reforming my image so that I could be on at 9 p.m. or whatever time we're on now, 9 p.m. And they put this moron who is a really bad Billy Eichner on to sit here and debate the news with me. That's what that look from Greg Gutfeld was. Continue.
No one can pronounce the Russian defense minister's name.
I can.
There's memos and which memo and who sent what memo to who. No one is emotionally invested or can even understand this story. It's a process story now. Do we think we're
Pause
losing...
it for 1 second. I mean, think about how much the words Clinton emails probably crossed. No dead bodies. Well, I mean, I guess he's making up dead bodies probably as we speak. But no sex, no money, no land, whatever it was. But continue.
This story, it's a process story now. Do we think we're losing sight of what the rest of the country thinks and feels about something like this?
Well, listen, I think that you're right in that there's a large section of the country that would like Washington to work on something else. But it is a big story. I mean, potentially, if you have the president asking the FBI director to move away from an investigation where he is told that he's not a target, but yet is investigating the Trump campaign and ties or collusion possibilities with Russia, that's a big deal.
Yeah, you know what else Jesse Waters could do to sort of test his thesis? He could Google 9 p.m. cable news ratings and see how Rachel Maddow is, starting to lap these guys. And they have a built-in, this is the thing that people don't realize about Fox. They have almost twice the clearance as MSNBC across the country. They are on cable systems and are exposed to, their potential audience is literally twice the size of MSNBC. Now you could argue, well, that's because of demand or whatnot, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's not that sensitive of a thing. I mean, these are deals that exist for years at a time and have to do with how many other properties are on those cable systems. And so to get beat when your actual pool of possible viewers is almost half the size is stunning. So maybe somebody should sit Jesse Waters down so we can understand what a story is.
He's clearly itching to get back into the street though and ask people some questions.
Man, I gotta do some
pound the pavement.
You gotta get that shoe leather working again.
I'd just like to bring up the time that he followed Amanda Turkle across state lines in his car.
And Grim punched him for it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that, but Grim did punch him.
Good. Good for Ryan
But
Griff.
that is fucking insane. He's insane. He's not only racist and terrible, he's insane.
It's a job, and you got a vacation.
It's a job.
All right. Well, look. So here we have Jesse Waters doesn't realize that it's a big story. That Comey may have evidence of potential obstruction of justice, but even Angus King, not a Democrat, independent, caucuses with the Democrats. This is what he had to say last night, and this guy is Mr. Can't We Just Get Along?
If these allegations, Senator, are true, are we getting closer and closer to the possibility of yet another impeachment process?
Reluctantly, Wolf, I have to say yes, simply because obstruction of justice is such a serious offense. And I say it with sadness and reluctance. This is not something that I've advocated for, or the word has not passed my lips in this whole tumultuous 3 or 4 months. But if indeed the president tried to tell the director of the FBI who worked for him that he should drop an investigation, whether it was Michael Flynn or whether it was some investigation that had nothing to do with Russia or politics or the election, that's a very serious matter.
There you have it. Those words never even crossed his lips, but this is a very serious matter. But yet, Jesse Waters does not realize that this is a serious matter. Now, do I have this right? Jesse Waters is on at 9 p.m. and Tucker Carlson's on Fox at 8 p.m. Well, here's the point. Maybe the reason why Jesse Waters doesn't realize how much of a story this is because maybe before he goes on Fox at 9 p.m., he watches Tucker Carlson at 8 p.m. And had he seen it, let's do a little pictorial, like a little slideshow. I'm going to put the breaking news on. And Molly Knight tweeted out this series of pictures. Here's Tucker Carlson with his first story. Tucker says, what you think is happening often isn't. Russia hysteria. And then he moves on to the next burning story of the night. Clinton Foundation, where is it now? And wait. In the back you can see the crawl underneath says, shared highly classified info with Lavrov. But for Tucker, it's not so much a story. Then move on. She's back. Yes. Hillary Clinton launches Onward Together PAC. Much more important story than the potential obstruction of justice and the fighting that's going on in the White House. But then, of course, there's this. ABC cancels popular Tim Allen show. Meanwhile, below it says, Trump told Comey, I hope you could see your way clear to letting this. There it is, folks. We call that why Jesse Waters did not know that James Comey's contemporaneous memos were a big story. That's Tim Allen.
Oh, that's Tim Allen.
That's Tim Allen.
I used to hear that every day after watching Home Improvement after school.
What?
God.
Now, I wonder if you could go on and ask if 4 out of 10 people on the street would know what the name of Tim Allen's show that's on now is.
Yeah, no, it's
Does anybody here?
I
in this
had
office
never
know?
heard of it, but it's actually being canceled after its 6th season, which is not. I mean, that's
But
a
the
good
thing is
run.
like shows like that live on ABC for like 12 years. Like, as far as I'm concerned,
12.
well, who knows? Like, if it's not the Tim Allen show, for all I know, it could be that Patrick Duffy show, or according to Jim, is still running.
What if I go out in the street and I go to Chinatown and I ask them if they know who James Comey is? That we play like one of those Chinese soundtracks, like for like Couching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or something like that. That would be fun.
Or I could even ask who is Rod Rosenstein, and I could get a bunch of jokes out of that. Who is Rod Rosenstein?
Who? Rod Rosenstein. Get it? Get it?
Definitely never make an Ivanka joke again, though. I apologize.
What is this? Don't worry about that. Let's go to the phones. Kelly's going to kill somebody. Calling from 708 area code. Who's this and who do you want Kelly to kill?
Hello, Sam.
Yes?
This is Zach from the Chicagoland area.
Zach? What's on
First,
your
I
mind?
wanted to thank you guys. Yep. I want to thank you guys for all the great content you guys did. I'm a member, and sadly, I've had to give up avocado toast and prospects of a home in the future, but it's worth it to be called a beta cuck every day.
Well, there you go. I appreciate it. Another millennial giving up avocado toast to support the program. I appreciate that.
Yep. So I have 2 quick points. I don't know if you guys are able to get to the Bernie Sanders, John Kasich, CNN town hall yesterday. But I want to take a moment to dispel the notion that somehow because Kasich doesn't support Trump and has some sort of baseline moral code where he doesn't want people to die immediately, that because of that, there should be some sort of unity ticket between Sanders and Kasich.
Oh, my God. Who even floated that idea?
Apparently the internet did, and CNN felt the need to comment on that.
The internet's wrong. I have to say, I thought Bernie Sanders did a great job in terms of, and I only watched parts of it, but of his political skills in these situations, I think have improved. I mean, he made Kasich look like Kasich really wouldn't go far enough. And I thought that was that was pretty good. But yes, the internet's wrong. The internet is often wrong. It would never happen, and it would never happen. I mean, there's this sense of like once we get past Trump, I don't think it's going to work that way, folks. I think once we get past Trump, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be trying to push their agenda. I think so on the far right, and I hope on the left, frankly. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to step back and say, oh, phew. I mean, we've talked about in this office, like, if Trump gets impeached tomorrow, we're going on a 4-month vacation. But the fact is, those 4 months are going to be very important. So we probably won't. But it's nice to fantasize. But the point is that there's going to be a big vacuum. And it's important that it's filled. And this notion that everybody's going to be like, okay, now we can bring the country together. I don't think that's going to happen. But so I wouldn't worry about it. The internet has been wrong before.
Mm-hmm. And the second point I wanted to bring up, I am currently pursuing an education degree, and I have a question for the office. I think that Michael and yourself, Sam, will have particularly strong opinions on this. I have been able to work in transgenderism and communism into my lesson plans and curriculum overall, but I'm not quite sure how to really work in mathematics because this is really key to my core brand proposition, and I'm just not sure I'm going to be able to weigh all 3 of those things. Thank you, and I'll take the answer off air.
Obviously, if you need to cut anything, cut the math.
Oh, yeah, math is the first to go.
Math is for losers.
I mean, and it's
Math
almost
is for pussies.
Once we have the full-on communist transgender agenda,
you went Boston. On that.
Transgender
the
agenda.
Boston, the transgender.
Once we have imposed that
agenda.
on society, math is going to be the first thing to go, anyways. So there's no point in teaching it at all. Calling from a 651 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is the Chris Lapaco.
Hello, Chris Lapaco.
What's up, pajama people? I'm using gender-neutral pronouns. I have something. Oh, yeah, here we go. Here's what I want to talk about.
What did you do?
Hey,
Do you have
I know
a
it's not
file
funny
of stuff
to...
that you use to call different schools? And
Oh,
schools? I mean,
no. I had a story. I just didn't want to forget. I get on the air and I start rambling and then I forget stuff.
Oh, my God.
I do want
that
to say,
happens to me, too.
What?
I don't know if you've ever noticed.
I know. I love you, Kelly. You're my favorite. I think you're like you're my spirit animal, Kelly. No, but I want to say I love News Rundown days. It primes my pump big time. So this Israeli spy that got exposed, in my mind, I have a really I know this isn't funny, but it's funny to me. I imagine like a black clothed terrorist like hanging up the phone and looking across the room at some super Jewy guy eating a bagel next to a dismantled laptop. He's like, I should have known. I should have known.
It's like
okay,
Sam
now
with like curl, like the Hasidim.
No, believe me, I'm one of you guys.
What are you talking about? We gotta assemble the laptop bomb. We don't have time for this. No,
Are
and
you
then we gotta
kidding?
nosh.
Believe me, if you were at home and you had heard me talk about the caliphate, it's all I'm like. The caliphate is great. I wish we had a caliphate. That's all I'm saying all the time.
My mother complains all the time. She goes, "We never talk anymore. You don't spend enough time with me because I'm just obsessed with the caliphate."
My caliphate, it was my bar mitzvah was completely caliphate themed.
Caliphate theme drove my Uncle Morty nuts. Oh, excuse me, Uncle Ibrahim nuts.
Donald Trump plagiarized from Legally Blonde. So this is like the third time they've been caught plagiarizing. Did you hear about that?
No.
Okay. He stole Reese Witherspoon's like commencement speech that he gave at Liberty University. So here's the quote. Are you ready? Here we go. Here's what Trump said. You must go forth into the world. Passion, courage in your conviction. Most importantly, be true to yourself. I did it. And the speech from Legally Blonde says, we take our next steps into the world. It is with passion, courage of conviction, and most importantly, have faith in yourself. We did it. So that's the idiot president we got. I just had to get that out there.
It's an incredible
piece of writing. Let's play this.
It's an incredible piece of writing, but there's one problem. You always got to go
When was this from? When was
we
this from?
statements to I statements.
When was this from, Matt?
So
No. When was this commencement speech? Lepaco.
Oh, a couple days ago.
Okay.
A couple days ago.
All right, here it is.
This is May 17th is the story today. So
Here we have Trump's plagiarized commencement speech from Legally Blonde. This is a speech he gave at where was it, Chris? At Liberty University.
Liberty
Yeah,
University.
here it is. Okay,
Cool.
here we go.
Take our next steps into the world.
You must go forth into the world.
It is with passion, courage of conviction,
courage in your convictions,
and most importantly,
have faith in yourself.
Be true to yourself. We did it!
I did it.
Oh my God, dude.
Oh, that's it's Jimmy Fallon actually presented that video. Is Jimmy Fallon on his I didn't mean to make a joke with Donald Trump tour.
Sorry about the whole helping this guy get elected president. I'll put together some montages for you. I love that. He took that speech.
The Chris Lepaco, did you have anything else to add?
Oh, well, one real thing to talk about in all this nonsense. He had President Erdogan at the White House yesterday, and I know Michael likes his Turkish politics, so I'd like to hear what he thinks about that. So I'll get off the air.
Okay.
Have a good one, guys.
Well, first off,
have video of this, right?
Yeah. Well, Erdogan was at the White House yesterday, and apparently outside the Turkish embassy, there were men believed to be Erdogan's bodyguards were attacking protesters who I believe were Kurdish and Armenian protesters and demonstrators. And look at this. This is insane. And look, this is what you get when we start talking about authoritarian leaders, right? The idea that Erdogan is traveling around with this crew of thugs is pretty stunning. Here it is. This is just crazy.
Back across the street. Get over there. Get over there. Get over, don't talk. Stay. husband! Yeah, talk to me! I wasn't this side!
More 14 cent all available.
Don't move.
There were 10 arrests. I don't know. I mean, you could see basically those Erdogan thugs just sort of bust through the police lines. I don't think the cops were prepared for this, frankly.
Is there something with immunity or something, or what's the situation with
Why
that?
are they not stopping any of the bodyguards?
I
You
mean,
cannot kick someone in the face while they're
I
lying
think
down.
the police who were there were just not mentally prepared for something like that to happen. There's not a lot of opportunities, I think, for Capitol Police to see a bunch of guys wearing suits who appear to be, embassy officials to just bust through their barricades and start beating on protesters. I can feel for the cops in that situation. They just didn't anticipate it. I think next time they will. And crazy. Very strange times, folks. Epish. Doth thou believes in moral relativism as long as it's for the rich. This is what justice reform looks like for Freedom Works. And the New York Times allows this trash to call himself the Catholic. Norquist's ideas of the president only needing a hand to sign is fundamental misapprehension of what the presidency has done since 1917. Trump to Pence. Mike, stop being a cockblock. It's backgammon Nacho Libre night every night Thursday. You know this. Send Jared off to Myanmar tonight. High school math teacher here. Innovation Zone at Central Office forced us to spend 20% of class time doing literacy exercises. Asthmatic grapefruit. Is it possible the fascination with the white working class is the media in relation to voting for Democrats is more a function of the demographics that have watch cable news? It seems to me that millennial voter minorities did not go out to vote, which led to Trump barely getting electoral college. Reagan Democrats have not voted for a Democrat since Reagan, and I seriously doubt they voted for Obama. Cable news is just sucking up to the demographic that watches cable news. I mean, I think there's some of that. I think some of it is legit concern. Oh, what is it? Kelly has an announcement to make, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, it's a big announcement. My friend had his first son yesterday. His name is Jack Hamilton Janowitz.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
And it's a big, over 9-pound.
Oh my God.
Baby. Yeah. And it's actually cute newborn. Not all newborns are, sometimes they're like squished.
Yeah, they get a lot less cute as they
Less
grow
cute.
older and they keep you awake. So, sorry. I gave them a shofar, but...
they're very excited.
Well, all right. It's nice to be young. Nuclear Negroid. Sam, speaking of cockblocks, when are we getting Michael Day? Wolverines. Tomorrow will be a Michael Thursday. Sam, I get it. You own a small business or whatever, the Majority Report. You employ Matt, Michael, and Kelly by paying them a wage lower than the actual value of their labor and appropriate surplus value they create, effectively exploiting them, which makes you definitionally a capitalist. I had this naive notion that you might be one of the good ones because you exhibit a certain evolved sense of ethics and empathy who maybe at a minimum could admit the contradictions of capitalism and existential crisis it's placed humanity in, not plainly subscribe to such a system as you claimed yesterday. I've always said we need to throw all capitalists into labor camps, but at least I would have considered putting you in one of the nicer ones. Oh, well. I totally admit the contradictions of capitalism and the crisis it's placed humanity in. I mean, I guess I'm like, what would I would be? The petty bourgeoisie. And, but, I mean, I would still like to go into one of the nicer camps. I love Sarah Palin. If they invoke the 23rd Amendment, can the Democrats abstain from voting and putting the entire onus on the Republicans to accept responsibility for this? Also, if Trump does get impeached before the fall, Can the Democrats keep that momentum going just on the policy to take back the House? I think we need Trump in there instead of Pence until 2018 at least. I mean, I tend to, it's the 25th Amendment. I tend to think that it would be better for all of us on some level if Trump was there until 2019 in a total vacuum. But I just don't think, I don't think it's worth trying to play, 12-dimensional chess with this stuff because, not that we can sort of pace it in any way other than forces that determine, but also, I'm afraid of what happens in this country if there's a terrorist attack. Bertold Meck. Sam, Red Dawn is good and true. It happened. I saw it. I lived it. John Milius is the most important documentarian of our time. Remarkable amount of disrespect, Brooksy. You only watched it stoned. Shame. You could have learned something about the largely forgotten Soviet occupation of Colorado. I recommend his other documentary on barbarians. I have no idea how he got such ancient footage. But he gives some compelling truth, the historical truth of white racial superiority, as well as the fact that James Earl Jones is a moral shapeshifter. Billy Buckner. Wait a second. Steve Miller is writing Trump's Islam speech? I don't have a joke for this. Billy Buckner, I'm wary of the idea that Jason Chaffetz is requesting all documents as anything more than Republicans using discovery documents to incorporate their strategy. Till he subpoenas the White House, I remain skeptical of a guy who retires 2 months after an election and is angling for a Fox News job. Unless Fox decides to isolate the far, far right and Chaffetz becomes one of the Republicans who takes back the country from the cancer in the Republican Party. I mean, I think people are starting to position for that. Dolink, Comey's documentation commonly used by attorneys just posted on Facebook. Ants kill 30 people every year. Marijuana safer than ants. A Square, Sam, this is indeed the thread that the anti-Trump establishment will keep pulling from and cheap suits come apart. But why not wait until after tax bill? What do you think triggered the barrage this week? I told you, as soon as Comey was fired, they're going to keep leaking stuff until there's, at the very least, an independent investigation. It was Comey getting fired. Intelligence community really going on a limb now. Rick Wilson joked last night about Trump running down Penn Avenue in a gold Speedo would be the only way to remove Trump from office. Sounds like someone else is listening to MR. I heard that, actually, and I was like, yes, it sounds familiar. Jewish superhero. Now that school year is coming to a close, when can we expect Melania to move to the White House? Plants on fire. Did you catch the Bernie Kasich debate last night? Only parts of it. Kasich is truly bizarre. He was confused about how a young woman with mental illness was able to attend his event earlier in the day. Did she walk? Did she take a bus? But the moral of his story was that she mattered. Couldn't bring himself to call Trump a liar and characterize Bernie as a name caller for doing so. The best line may have been his initial thoughts on Russia investigation. I saw Bernie's wife when we were right up getting the makeup, and as I walked past her, so it's serious. I don't get it. Politics drawn poorly.
He was in person?
Everyone keeps looking to falling poll numbers to motivate congressional Republicans and sink Trump. They shouldn't be looking toward Republican donor class, and when do they lose patience with Trump? Yes, Mr. Stooks. I just saw a picture of Trump sitting with Kissinger. It looked like a deflated balloon sitting next to an overinflated one. Seriously, though, the best episodes of MR are the ones titled News Rundown with MR Crew. Keep it up. Oh, and Trump would say his great struggle is to make America great again. The specifics were never important. In the sticks, I work in state government. We document everything. Every phone call, email, convo. It's not uncommon due to statements being used in court, people covering their own asses, especially departmentally.
There's a Dean Acheson quote, who was the Secretary of State for Harry Truman. It goes, "A memorandum is written not to inform the reader, but to protect the writer."
Trump has never had to back up any statements ever. He can claim Obama wiretapped him in his tapes of Comey, but now he must back those statements up, and he can't because he's a liar. Not to confuse, I don't understand the logic with the Israeli spy story. Why would the Russians want to out an Israeli spy embedded in ISIS? Russia is a bigger enemy of ISIS than the U.S. It makes no sense. Whoever leaked that actually has an outed a spy in an effort to damage Trump, which seems like the actual treason here. I think you don't necessarily want... I mean, look, apparently Israel didn't even share this information with the Five Eyes. the idea is that this information is a tradable commodity. They don't care. They may be enemies of ISIS, but they don't really particularly care, frankly. And I would imagine they would encourage. I mean, just without making a judgment about Russia, look at what Russia wants. Russia wants more hegemony in Syria. They want to maintain their relationship with Assad. I'm not judging any of this. I'm just stating facts. They would like the U.S. to get as aggressive as possible against ISIS in Syria. If ISIS were to blow up one of our planes, what do you think would happen? I mean, I presume you don't need me to answer the next thing. So why would it be logical for Russia to trade this information for someone down the line that would prevent the U.S. from preventing an attack on Western Europe or the United States? I mean, is it really that hard to figure out? Is it? Stoon, when you said Ronald Reagan spoke at the Coast Guard Academy, I momentarily thought you meant Ronald Reagan, the caller, and momentarily very impressed. Jerry, wow, I guess if you put 1 million monkeys in 1 million recording studios, they'll eventually produce a poupée qui fait non cover that doesn't suck. MR member, Sam, could I go to the Socialized Show membership for a while? I'm trying to free up some cash to give monthly to Onward Together, Hillary 2020. I and your country thank you. Sincerely, MR member. Send me an email. Senator Schumer. Single-payer health care bill passed in New York Assembly yesterday, but it's held up in the Senate. This happens every year, but this year is the first year that most of the Dem state senators, IDC 2, are supporting it. IDC is too. The one holdout is Senator Ruben Diaz of the South Bronx, and he is on the fence. Give his office a call and get this bill through. The single-payer health care bill passed. Oh, yeah. Diaz is a strange... I mean, the New York Senate is so messed up. And Bonora. If anything goes forth on impeachment, which I still much doubt, it will form the new Trump stop legend. Almighty. I followed Bernie page on Facebook a few days ago. Someone posted a meme with a picture of Bill Clinton with the following: I fired my FBI director the day before Vince Foster was found dead. What does Bernie or bust MLK have to say about this?
I'm so tired of fucking corporate Democrats. And by the way, you will never hear on this program a mention of Seth Rich. And I really hope I got that name right, because the person portraying that character does not remember that person's name ever. Is that right? Seth Rich?
Yeah.
Okay. What about Seth Rich? He was murdered by the DNC. Hillary put the gun in his mouth herself. I guess she had missed killing people after the Vince Foster being so long ago.
Calling from a 585 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Rebecca from Boonville. How are y'all doing?
Good. How you doing, Rebecca? What's on your mind?
First thing, I had sent you an email just letting you know that I was paying for the gentleman's membership who felt irritated by you all.
Oh, well, thank you.
And so I sent you a check, and I didn't. Life's been kind of crazy and busy, so I haven't been able to listen live for a while. And I had wanted to call in to offer a challenge to all your other listeners that if you are able, folks out there, and you enjoy being irritated by the Majority Report and by all of their amazing impressions, then I challenge you to pay for the membership, the non-membership of the gentleman who was irritated. So
that's very kind.
Just throwing that membership challenge out to everybody. So,
I appreciate that.
So you just mentioned, yeah, sure. Hey, we need you guys. You mentioned that New York State politics is crazy, and I want to give you an update. I think you recall I'm involved now with the Oneida County Executive Committee, and we started a town subcommittee in Boonville and some of the surrounding small towns. And just wanted to give you an update if you have just a short moment.
Please.
So, in order for the Democrats to take over the leadership in Oneida County, we just need to flip 4 seats. We have 3 really great candidates, but we're having trouble convincing a 4th, and we'd love actually to have 3 more folks run for vulnerable seats. So there's exciting things and frustrating things. People are coming out of the woodwork. We've had, in the last 3 months, I would say, or at least since Trump was elected, Oneida County Committee for the Democrats have added about 80 new members.
Wow.
Folks are just really activated.
Well, are
that's really
they
exciting.
tend to be older or younger or what? Men, women?
It seems to be a mix, although at the last, and I just attended my very first Oneida County meeting and my first two executive committee meetings, but it seems like that from my perspective, it seems like there's a lot of women and some younger people are showing up, which is really great. I couldn't give you the specific numbers.
Right.
I can't break it down, specifically for you. But just from my perspective, I know that a lot of the people that are attending our just local subcommittee meetings are women that were activated through the women's marches, and also people were really activated through the Indivisible Facebook groups that have grown out of that, and that's actually how we have started to get people in the area activated and involved, in our local committee work. So there's some real positive things, but we really need folks to step up. And let me just mention 3, and I don't know if anybody else, living in Oneida County listens to the Majority Report or not, but if there's anybody out there living in Oneida County in the legislative districts of 8, 11, or 16, if you've ever thought about serving your community, really consider contacting the Oneida County Democratic Party, because we're running out of time. We really have to get, we'd love to get at least one more candidate to run before the last week of May. We're going to be getting our petition packets June 1st, and then from June 6th to July 13th, we will be going out and getting signatures. You have to have 5% of the population signatures on petitions for particular districts.
I don't want to get too much into the weeds of that, Rebecca, because I don't know how many people. I mean, we have a huge, lot of people from Utica listen to this. I don't know if that's true or not. But if they do, folks, get in touch with the Oneida County Democrats. Appreciate the call, Rebecca. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, you keep doing what you do. I love you guys.
Thanks. Bye. This is the beautiful country they live up in there. Calling from a 330 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is a call from Michael. This is Sam's bulldog.
You actually looked that video up?
I happen to take great offense to your mischaracterization of Sam Harris and his views.
Oh, well, tell me, what was it?
Well, the bell curve is more than just the fact that your phallus hangs to the left, Michael.
All right, I think you
need to read a book.
Okay, you hit your peak there.
Appreciate
the
the
call.
call.
You're ahead, but that was a good concept.
Thanks for the call. All right, final call of the day. Calling from a 704 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is James. I'm from Tennessee.
Hey, James, what's on your mind?
Just want to say I'm a fan of the show, and I have a bone to pick with some of your cast here. If you give me a second, it won't take long.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Well, first, I have a bone to pick with some of your crew there.
Oh, you have a bone to pick with some of the crew. Oh, well, by all means.
I do. I'm not a fan of how Kelly keeps making fun of your wardrobe.
Well, yeah, Kelly is making fun of my wardrobe, but she gets docked in pay every time she does that, so she doesn't realize it.
I feel like we all have eyes, and we can see what's going on there. She doesn't need to remind us. And if you choose to step outside and look like that, that's entirely your decision.
Well, I appreciate
No
that.
one should impose you for it.
All right.
And also, I just want to say I'm not a fan of how people keep talking about your tiny penis. It's not okay.
Right. Well,
And you're a grown man.
that's right. I am.
Not really.
I mean,
Parts of him
You
are
should
fully
fight
grown.
back, Sam.
well, if I could. If I
Well,
could. If I
hope you have a
could.
nice day.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate the call. All right. All right, folks. Let's take some IMs. Wrap up. Anthony from Baltimore. Breaking news. Acting FBI director to be replaced with John Miller. Self-described great fucking guy. Cat. Paul McLeod.
I have a news for you, Sam. I will be taking over the fucking FBI.
Paul McLeod of BuzzFeed says Orrin Hatch succinct summary of various healthcare negotiations in the Senate. There's a lot of infighting. Another Hatch comment. Right now, it looks like we're moving towards socialized medicine. Jesse Waters can't read as fast as the crawl. PSS trading that particular bit of intel with Russians puts a real damper on anyone wanting to share intelligence with us. Of course. Turd Ferguson. So let me get this straight. The president of the U.S. disclosed Israeli code word information to Russians. Then, when the story broke, the national security advisor had to come out and say, no, this isn't treason. He's just a moron. Remember during the campaign when Trump said the whole world was laughing at us because of Obama? Pachadilla Quaker. Lawrence Kramer sounds like he doesn't have a lot of experience handling cases involving victims of gun violence, sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse. This is Lawrence Kramer. Who's he talking about? Riverdale Steve. J. Edgar Hoover, not Herbert Hoover. Oh, did I say Herbert Hoover? Most people don't
I
know.
didn't actually notice that.
Why didn't you say J. Edgar Hoover?
You know what? The guy wore a dress, but he still kept his eyes on the fucking ball.
He did. That's established. Yes. Well, right-wing Mandela always says that. I don't always say. And J. Edgar Hoover, who, by the way, wore a dress. Just wanted to set that up before I talk about this COINTEL program.
What's wrong with wearing a dress? I mean, did he just want to wear a dress at home? What's wrong with that?
It's a little bit more complicated.
It's
but
fine.
whatever.
Historic Larry. Trump,
I think it's
Comey.
just fine.
I took him into the dining room alone. He wanted to look at the furniture, so we went in to look at the furniture. We had ice cream. I have 2 scoops with my chocolate cream pie and a cherry on top. Everyone else has 1 scoop. It was the most beautiful piece of chocolate pie you've ever seen. I said, you have to tell you something. We've just launched 59 missiles. He was very impressed. But he was married, so I better hope there's no tapes before he leaks to the press. Scrumpy style. Michael, did you catch the footage of the Erdogan goons beating up Kurdish protesters in D.C. yesterday? Yeah, we played that. As function of a subreddit called R Neoliberal is gaining popularity on Reddit. It has appeared multiple times on the front page. It's not satirical. Most posts are memes degrading socialist and economically progressive objectives. Why can't this failed political economic agenda just go away? I think it's probably somebody's trolling you.
They'll lose the meme war, I think.
You said Herbert Hoover, but I presume you meant J. Edgar Hoover. Yes, I did. Oh, boy. Okay. Whoa. Sam de minimis penis. Please let me insert this tiny comment into your absolutely cavernous thinkhole. All right. I can't read this entire thing. It's too huge. I can't handle it. I don't even know where. I mean, it's... How can we be shocked? P.S. Haha, this comment was 12 inches. You're going to be limping tomorrow. Let's see. I can't read all of it. I apologize. It's just too long. Maybe you wanted me to say that. Pete I've never been to the Minneapolis airport. Ivanka Tinkle. Teachers are 100% a dead-end job right now. In Michigan, you get starting $35K, but after that, you go through student teaching. And you also have to go back to school to get recertified every 5 years, which forces you to pay for post-grad, which means you're more debt and more money to pay back. Now, teachers of 2016 no longer get pensions. New teachers, they have to go to no union representation or bargaining power. There's no reason to be a teacher, sadly. Producer Lauren, Jesse Waters probably happy if the body of Seth Ross showed up in the morgue as part of Hillary Clinton's email server scandal. I don't know who that is either. Edgewater Joe, hey, Sam, you mentioned it earlier. I thought we didn't want to find out, but it might be possible that any terrorist attack now after Trump revealed compromised sensitive security issue, the Russian puts him in the jackpot even more. Any kind of link made between his incompetency and the country becoming less secure would rightly be made and highlighted. By association, the Republicans would lose an issue. Look, I don't know. Kevin 11-721. You know who requires loyalty oaths? Bad men. Very bad men. Secret identity politics. Effectively, what's the difference between getting your money from Russian gangsters and getting it from Saudi donors in Wall Street? At least from a politics perspective. Not that I think Hillary Clinton is remotely as sketchy as Trump, but people are already starting to pivot to comparing Trump's connections to Hillary's constant quest for money. Well, what's the difference between getting your money? You mean your personal money or getting your political money? I don't know what exactly the point is. Feminazi Chelsea. Hey, Sam, you said a couple of times Sarah Palin was a prototype of Donald Trump. What do you exactly mean by that? Just that the Republican Party elevated someone entirely incompetent to a level of power that far exceeds their capability? Or did Palin's nom put some kind of face on populism and non-coastal elitism? I was like 14 or 15. Both those things. And also elevated someone whose complete appeal was to the fever swamps of conservative meme. You know, she was the first talk radio host friendly Republican on the presidential ticket. And so both those things, completely incompetent, totally irrelevant. What was relevant is that she was willing to basically regurgitate talking points from right-wing media. Beefy Richard. Dothout's argument for Trump's lack of liability is also an argument for placing him under guardianship. The Chinese guy's lack of reaction was probably because it took all his strength not to strangle Waters. With regard to Erdogan's thugs, where are the cops with lighter trigger fingers when you need them? I mean, I think the Capitol Police tend to be, you know, in those situations more, I think, you know, they were doing crowd control. There's no reason to expect something like that to happen. I'm not surprised that they didn't know. I think you were right on the once we get past Trump thing. What I'm worried about is Republicans impeaching him after the midterms, or a terrible act and the media going gaga about how they're so serious in response. Oh, you know they will. Never leaving Hawaii, which is a factual and inescapable death spiral, Obamacare or the Trump administration. The Dems now need to use that phrase incessantly when messaging when they speak of the Trump administration. Spacebar. Tuning in late today, what does Michael think of Jimmy Fallon's statement on his humanizing of Donald Trump?
Not impressed.
Telse Marque. I'm the guy who went to Trinity College and wrote you about Tucker a while back. Apparently Waters is another Trinity grad. Indeed. Just wanted to let you know that I will be rounding out Fox's Trinity block with my new show, The Hartford A-Hole Factory presents Cuck-Ups and Practical Jokes. Trinity, I think, was the only other school I got into. Maybe
How many
maybe
did you
in
apply
Tufts,
to?
like 4.
Oh, okay.
UMass. Well, I got into
Wait,
UMass.
you didn't get into UMass?
I think I got waitlisted at Georgetown, waitlisted at Tufts. Maybe I got into Tufts.
No.
And Trinity and Connecticut College. And I didn't want to go to Trinity.
Because of the name?
No, because I did walk around and I got the feeling like I saw a lot of like
Yeah.
guys who
A lot of
looked like
Tucker.
Tucker Carlson. I did not feel comfortable in that environment.
I don't feel
Or Jesse
comfortable
Waters, I think I saw. Like guys like that. And I
Jesse
just didn't.
Waters. Wow.
Sean Clear, anyone see the Twilight Zone episode It's a Good Life? It's hilarious, analogous to Trump's relationship to his staff. Any Democrat running for a 2018 who doesn't publicly endorse impeachment is insane. I agree. Petrus, after hearing the commencement speech, quote, I'm now convinced more than ever that Tiffany is the real driver in this administration. Yes, and McCain brought her to us. How does he still have a position in any cred? 2 dope goys. DC cops weren't prepared, so they defaulted to arresting protesters who got assaulted. Yay, authoritarianism. missing link. For the definitive guide in cuckoldry, please watch the movie Absolute Power with Clint Eastwood. The movie takes a cucking to the level of the President of the United States, Gene Hackman, and what happens when even someone as powerful as President is caught cucking his rich donor, E.G. Marshall. Death ensues. Dan the Man. Turkish bodyguard incident is eerily similar with a scene from the Baader-Meinhof complex when Pavli was visiting West Germany. Dictators always have their way whenever they visit Western countries.
There was also something, I can't find it, but there was something not as dramatic, but in the same vein when Erdogan came a couple years ago.
Geniality of evil. Are we totally sure Trump can declassify intel without some procedure? My understanding is he can. Great leap forward. Chelsea Manning was released today, and Trump was furious and called her a 6. I hope she left a chocolate under her pillow for Trump. Rafa 338. Breaking news. Trump calls for a trial by combat. Freedom for Palestine. You guys should have a guest talk about the power of conspiracy theories. I have a lot of right-wing family members, and they all talk about is Pizzagate and Seth Rich. You did. Didn't you have somebody on for that?
A while ago you had on author Goldwag.
Oh, right.
I might have. No. Oh, yeah. Bronwyn Dickey.
Right.
Yep. Right.
The DX Fool. Hi, folks. Rachel Maddow has the #1 show at MSNBC, yet they replaced her second rerun at 4 a.m. Eastern with Brian Williams. Now I'm stuck on the West Coast with Corden. By the way, members had GOP Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska on to promote his book. Myers. Sasse seems to be an empty suit. Yeah. Apparently, Lawrence O'Donnell, it appears like he's out. It's not clear yet. His contract goes till June 4th, but they haven't attempted to approach him, apparently. And supposedly it's because he's too hard on Trump. Look, this is the way that MSNBC is going. And, I don't know what to say. I had my commissary pass revoked, so I never hear any of the talk around the line. I don't think they have a paid contributor who is paid less or less a part of that place than myself. I am completely
the Connecticut College of MSNBC contributors.
I'm more like the Bates. Gigi Pale.
Check out the rankings.
Just visited the wonderful, weird film Southland Tales and was a bit unsettled by how prophetic it was regarding the last decade. Check it out if you're not familiar.
Gigi Palin is a funny username.
Hypnotic Genes. Remember, as opposed to Gigi Allen? Is that what it's supposed to be? Remember after Romney lost, when the Republicans created their campaign autopsy describing why Romney lost and what they could do better in the future? What does it say? They ended up winning by basically doing the opposite of everything they said in the autopsy. It says exactly what I've been saying. That's who the Republican Party is. Dragon Slayer. Further follow-up on the call. Kasich is not remotely a moderate, and the idea of promoting him as centrist with all his anti-choice and anti-union views is disgusting. Indeed. 21. Assad is good. You should have Stephen Gowans on. I don't know that. Unorthodox report. I find it strange that your viewers down-talk capitalism while utilizing all of the luxuries of the free market. If you support any other system than capitalism, please shut your privately bought consumer goods off and turn them to Walmart. The problem is not capitalism. The problem is monopolies and unfair labor practice. Capitalism built this country and came about through natural processes. Ask people with a socialized economy how harmful capitalism is.
It's moronic.
The idea of your privately bought consumer goods. I think part of the reason why I don't spend too much time thinking about how to answer that question is because what people define as capitalism and socialism, it's pretty, I think, I find, at least broadly speaking, that is vague and blurry. The idea that you wouldn't have any consumer goods under a socialist country, living under a socialist or living in a socialist economy is just simply not the case. And I mean, even more so maybe because, like, most of these goods aren't even made in this country anyways, right? I mean, the idea that we're not going to have any retail stores or that there would be, that's silly. But I think, that's part of the reason why I don't really get too hung up on saying whether I, subscribe to capitalism or not, because
the whole iPhone and technology thing equals capitalism is the dumbest nonsense that comes out, because look at what makes this phone great. GPS, all these things. Where did the research and development money come from? That
it all came from government.
Completely delusional about that stuff.
But I don't know what the argument is there that maybe you wouldn't have so many AT&T stores if we lived in a social country.
It's really just very libertarian-y kind of argument in some ways.
Bigley Smalls. Any Democrat running for office, we already did that. Thames Darwin. Michael, I was actually going to respond to Sam's bulldog is Michael's frightened chihuahua, but didn't want to be presumptuous. Too moody, too. Joy Reid is calling not only for the impeachment of Trump, but Pence, too. That would give us President Ryan. Shoo. I think it's important to say they're all culpable. Let's put it that way. After Nixon's resignation, then went after like crazy looking for corruption with Carter. After Iran-Contra, then looked until they found a BJ with Clinton. Now after a memo obstruction, the Fox is pushing Seth Rich, noticing a trend. Justin, side your wife. If I became a member, will one of you take Sam's watch away to keep him from playing with the dial? It's loud.
Oh my gosh.
What watch?
Everybody has a different complaint about what Sam is doing up there.
What watch?
I don't know. It's not a watch. It's a paperclip that they're probably thinking of. Or, yeah, you got a paper clip in your hand?
I got a toothpick in my hand.
Okay, so sometimes it's a paper clip, tooth clip, or toothpick, and sometimes it's like about 15 magic markers, and it's your brand. So
Easy D, indeed. I don't know which Kelly is best. Antifa Kelly, MRA Kelly, or J. Edgar Hoover apologist Kelly. Matt Munkin.
Excuse me, wait a second.
SJW Kelly.
Oh.
SJW Hoover, excuse me.
No.
The guy who said Kramer.
Can I just say about the J. Edgar Hoover? It's not I'm defending J. Edgar Hoover. That's ridiculous. It's just that the thing to find cross-dressing funny, just him aside, I just don't think it's funny. Sorry.
The guy who said Kramer meant Krasner, yesterday progressive Philly DA primary winner. Okay. Yeah, I mentioned that story. He doesn't have any experience prosecuting anyone. He's been a defense civil rights attorney. Well, as a defense attorney, I think you have a sense of prosecutions, but when you are the DA, I don't think you're probably directly involved in those prosecutions anyways. You have career attorneys in that office who handle the actual prosecutions. As the DA, you would make broader decisions as to what to go after. And I think certainly as a defense attorney, you'd have a pretty decent sense of when you had enough evidence to go forward with a case. That seems to me to be a stupid criticism. It's a political position. It's far more political than, let's say, a U.S. attorney who gets appointed. Chris Christie was appointed U.S. attorney. He had no experience in that world. I don't even think as a defense. I don't think he ever probably went into a courtroom. Dostoevsky, I just accepted my offer to Berkeley and got into 12 out of 14 schools I applied to, a long way from my first community college semester when I was homeless. Good for you.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Let's give you one of these. Oh, I've read they're now in talks with O'Donnell. Maybe
there might be a little bit of pushback on that, yeah.
A bungle. Capitalism brought your slavery. Ilmic. Actually, American-style slave labor built this country. Free labor does wonders, but that's not capitalism, or is it? Contagious chameleon. If someone thinks monopolies are the problem, then worker cooperatives are the answer. Monopolies are reflective of how capitalism works. A1. James Comey, the Kingslayer, takes down 2 houses, the Queen-to-be and the Mad King, still a jackass. And the final IM of the day. Also, the person defending capitalism used the phrase built this country. They should read Henry Heller's The Capitalist University, or they can listen to the interview we did with Henry Heller just like 3 weeks ago. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive.